Welcome to this explainer. You know, millions of Americans are staring down a frankly terrifying reality right now. It's this overwhelming feeling that the harder you work, the further behind you fall. So today, we're going to break down exactly why financial exhaustion has essentially become the new normal and why so many people are feeling genuinely panicked about their future. We are going to dig right into the economic mechanics of a dream that is quietly but very quickly slipping away from the middle class.
Work hard, save money, stay disciplined, and one day you'll retire comfortably. We've all heard it, right? For decades, that was the ultimate American promise. It was simple, it was straightforward, and it was accepted as absolute gospel. You put in your 40 years, you punch the clock, and you are rewarded with those golden years of relaxation. But here's the thing. Today, that straightforward advice has become almost entirely obsolete. The math simply doesn't work the way it used to.
Because as we look ahead to 2026, it's becoming crystal clear that this promise is slipping away. Millions of people are waking up to a totally new reality, and we're talking about folks who did everything right. They checked all the boxes, they avoided frivolous debt, they worked steady jobs, and they diligently put money into their retirement accounts. Yet, the finish line just keeps moving further out. I mean, financial experts used to say you needed $1 million to retire. Now, they're casually tossing around figures like $2 or even $3 million just to maintain a basic standard of living. For the average worker, achieving that is starting to feel completely impossible.
So let's look at our first major topic, the broken retirement promise, and how the entire system is shifting right under our feet.
The contrast between the past and today is, well, it's genuinely staggering. Think about it. Back in the day, a standard middle-class income, and often that was from just one working spouse, could comfortably support a home, raise a family, pay for comprehensive health care, and still leave plenty of room to build retirement savings. Today, that exact same tier of income, which now usually requires two full-time working spouses, is heavily strained just trying to cover the basics. We're talking groceries, rising insurance premiums, and rent. The actual purchasing power of a hard day's work has absolutely plummeted.
And here is the really frustrating part. You might actually be doing everything right. Your money might be steadily growing in the bank or the stock market, but the velocity of your expenses is growing even faster. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. Wage growth is completely detached from the true on-the-ground cost of living. Inflation and soaring everyday costs are just completely outstripping disciplined savings. It used to be that retirement was the guaranteed reward for a lifetime of labor. Now, basic economic math is turning it into a luxury.
Moving on to the macro level, we're looking at a system breaking down, specifically the collapse of traditional safety nets.
Those safety nets previous generations relied on, they are essentially gone. Take Social Security, for instance. It's facing severe long-term funding problems, leaving younger workers legitimately terrified that they'll see reduced benefits by the time they're actually eligible. Then, consider company pensions. They used to guarantee your income until the day you died. Today, they've practically vanished, replaced almost entirely by 401k plans that shift all the market risk directly onto you. And finally, healthcare. The costs have exploded so violently that medical bills or a sudden need for long-term care can literally wipe out 40 years of disciplined savings in a matter of months. The risk has completely shifted away from institutions and squarely onto the shoulders of exhausted individuals.
Now, you can't talk about wealth without talking about the housing crisis. For a century, owning a home was the definitive wealth-building tool in America. But today, home prices remain historically high, while interest rates make borrowing incredibly expensive. And to make matters worse, you aren't just competing against other families trying to buy a starter home anymore. You are competing against massive institutional investors who are buying up huge swaths of inventory with all-cash offers. Without home ownership to anchor their wealth, younger generations are finding it nearly impossible to build the long-term financial stability that their parents enjoyed.
Which brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, the hidden cost trap, which is acting as an invisible drain on modern savings.
Let's talk about the silent killer of modern wealth, the subscription economy. We're talking streaming services, app subscriptions, digital tools, delivery fees. Half of which we probably forgot we even signed up for after that 7-day free trial expired, right? These aren't massive one-time hits to your wallet. They are tiny, recurring paper cuts to your bank account every single month. They quietly bleed your disposable income over time, weakening your ability to save before you even realize where the money went. Modern life has just become inherently expensive to simply exist in. So, when you stack those basic survival costs with subscription fatigue, what happens? People inevitably turn to credit just to bridge the gap.
Add in necessary auto loans and suddenly ballooning credit card balances, and you are trapped in an endless cycle. And by the way, even high earners get stuck here. Why? Because interest is essentially a heavy tax on your future labor. It violently consumes your future income before it ever gets a chance to become savings. It locks millions into a treadmill they just can't step off of.
And we absolutely have to mention the sandwich generation. If you haven't heard this term, it describes everyday Americans caught in a massive, highly emotional financial pressure cooker. They are financially supporting their own growing children, dealing with the astronomical costs of childcare and education, while simultaneously providing financial and physical care for their aging parents. Facing that intense pressure from both sides creates an agonizing dynamic that makes setting aside money for their own eventual retirement virtually impossible.
Okay, so how are everyday Americans adapting? Let's look at the new survival strategy for this harsh economic reality.
65. For generations, that magic number was the golden finish line. You get the gold watch, you permanently stop working, and you finally enjoy your life. Today, that hard stop is a luxury most simply cannot afford. The whole concept of a traditional retirement age is actively dying. It's being replaced by a pressing need for constant financial adaptability. For many, the future simply means working less, perhaps shifting gears, but never stopping completely.
Surviving today requires a completely different playbook. Instead of banking on one giant savings pile that could be wiped out by a single medical emergency, people are pivoting to prioritize strong cash flow. They're hustling to build multiple income streams through freelancing, consulting, or digital side gigs. They're transitioning into flexible, part-time work late into life rather than coming to a full stop. And increasingly, they are physically uprooting. People are relocating to cheaper cities or even moving abroad just to drastically lower their overhead and make the math work.
If you take anything away from this explainer today, let it be this heavy truth. The economic system changed infinitely faster than ordinary workers could adapt to it. Millions of Americans didn't fail financially because they were lazy or undisciplined. They played by a set of rules that they were promised with work, only to find out those fundamental rules of the economy changed completely overnight. Which brings us to a lingering, provocative question that I want you to really reflect on. If a lifetime of hard work, discipline, and saving no longer guarantees the traditional retirement we were all promised, then what exactly are we working toward? It might be time to completely redefine what financial success, security, and a well-lived life actually look like for the modern era. Thanks so much for exploring this with me.